Hey everybody, thanks for clicking on my video today. This video may be a little bit jumping around a little bit, not quite flowing as smoothly as it should. I've kind of cobbled this together. So I've done different parts of the install, different days of the month here, and do a little as I can each time. Anyway, as you can see, we're looking at the tank here in the trunk. I have this mounted, and it came out really well. It's sturdy, it's solid. I've used stainless steel hardware to bolt it down into the trunk floor, and also you can see where the feed is for the nitrous system off the tank with the gauge. There is also I covered the line with the wire loom to give it a little added protection where it feeds through the trunk floor. But I've also put a rubber grommet in there in the hole for the line to run through. So there's really no chance of the line becoming abrasion or anything like that, any type of abrasion to the line. It's well protected. So you might be able to notice in the back there behind the gauge there's the heater controls switch for the blanket that's on the tank, and you can adjust that to regulate the pressure with the heater on. And I haven't adjusted it yet. I really have a couple of little loose ends to tie up, but we're getting there. Anyway, well, let's move on. I'm going to show you what's going on underneath the car, and as you can see, I've also done the line with the wire loom here. This is a steel braided hose for the nitrous system, and that runs up underneath the car here. Let me see if I can get to it. And yeah, where is it now? Hold on. Alright, you can kind of see up between the tailpipe and the frame here is where the hose exits the trunk floor, and then it crosses over the frame, and as I said, goes up along the frame here. I had the tire off to do this, and it is secured in here with some of the bracket clamps and things along the way, and also underneath the car we have the line, which I don't know if you can see very well due to the backlighting situation, but it runs all along here with the fuel line for the Lincoln, and proceeds to run up here, which I no longer covered it with the wire loom, and that's also basically tracing the rest of the fuel lines and return lines up to the motor compartment. Alright, so the tire is off the front of the car now, and here is the nitrous line. As you can see, again, I dressed it in the wire loom. I'm just trying to keep it protected, and it just kind of keeps it a little less obvious. I don't know if I'm going to try to kind of hide the nitrous system, or at least try to make it least amount obvious as I can. I'm not trying to go stealth with it, but anyway. And then I have the end of the line, I have it tie wrapped so it doesn't slide off, but that will connect to the nitrous solenoid and the plate, and also the fuel line over here is already teed off and ready to go for a fuel tap. I set that up quite a while ago. The other side of the T I have feeding my mechanical fuel pressure gauge inside the car. so that's why it's a T type connection. So that's where we are right now. I will show you the rest of the system once I get it installed. The solenoids, I'm taking them apart right now, checking them out, make sure everything's good before I install them in the car. All right, so we're getting there with the car. Already removed my plenum. It's sitting over there. It's an AccuFab with the AccuFab 75, or I think it's the 75 or 80 millimeter butterfly on this. I don't remember exactly. And the other thing I'm doing right now, I got my nitrous plate situated here. Just trying to test fit things. I wanted to make sure the hood would close because this adds like about another ½ inch to the height of the whole system, and it just clears. But something I wanted to point out to you guys, if you can see that blue in there, that is a gasket for the plenum to manifold to match up and seal. And I'm going to take these bolts out so you can see what it looks like. See? So basically, with these installed just loosely, and that's another thing, if you're not buying a complete kit, like I didn't buy the complete kit, I bought a used kit off of Marketplace on Facebook, and I bought the extra things I needed, some of the hardware, bolts, or extended bolts and things like that I needed. But what I'm getting to is, as you can see, I can move this around because unfortunately Nitrous Express has drilled these holes out a lot, probably bigger than they needed to be, so it gives you a lot of wiggle room, literally. So you gotta take note of that. Make sure, take your time, make sure you get it lined up good. And I know it's going to be a pain in the butt because you're going to be dropping this plenum on top of this and possibly moving it around. If you see the bolt holes on here, they're definitely smaller. Let me take one of my bolts out here. You can see that they don't have any slop. They fit tight in the holes. Unfortunately, like I said, Nitrous Express, they drilled these holes kind of big. So just something to be careful if you plan on doing a nitrous installation. Just be aware of that so that you don't develop a vacuum leak, because if you got a vacuum leak, it's going to mess things up and you're going to wonder like, oh, what's going on with my nitrous system. One other thing you need to take into account, you probably won't encounter this if you buy the complete system, but because you have that plate, which is about a ½ inch, as I said, you need some spacers for like this ear over here. This protrudes out and it actually bolts to the manifold right here. You need that spacer so that it matches the height of the plate, and that way when you tighten this bolt down, you're not twisting the whole unit. Also, for your throttle cables, in my scenario, this part here sits on top of here, so that's also going to be raised up a ½ inch more, which means this lower, sorry about the glare there, this hole here, which bolted to the intake manifold back here, also will need a spacer. So just things to be aware of. If you buy a used kit, make sure you get that stuff, or you're going to be doing some machine work. What I actually did is I bought a aluminum rod offline, and I cut these down to size and fitted them. I ground the faces flush and took a micrometer and measured the height of these to match the height of the plate, and then I had to drill them out. Drilling them out, to be honest, I didn't get the hole centered but it's good enough for the purpose of spacers. It's not perfect. You might be able to do it with washers. Well, with the washers, you know, they may be 3-4 millimeters thick or whatever, a couple millimeters thick, and you might get in that spot where one more is needed, but when you put the one more in, it's too high. If you take it out, it's too low. So again, just something to be aware of. But we're going to get this back on. I will start up the video again once I get it on. This is, like I said, not a how-to. I'm just kind of bringing up little things you may run into or you should be aware of when you do this. Also, your EGR tube, if you keep the EGR, you're going to have to come up with a way to extend that EGR tube because you've raised the whole thing up a ½ inch. It's no longer going to attach to your manifold or to the EGR valve itself. So, you know, maybe you guys will just not hook up the EGR. You know, that's your preference, your prerogative. But just things to be aware of when you're doing this. All right, so I'm going to cut the video off now, and I will continue back once I get all this. Okay, so we're up at the front of the car here now, and I primarily have just about everything done 100% under the hood here with the nitrous system. You can see the fuel solenoid and the nitrous solenoid there with the purge valve right next to it, and my purge line that goes out from the back of the hood to evacuate any air out of the nitrous system. Again, when I installed all this, I put some wire loom dressing on the cabling, or I should say the hoses, not cables, just to dress it up a little bit and give it a little added protection. And over here I have the pressure sensor for the nitrous gauge that I also have in the car. I also have one mounted in my gauge cluster so that I can see what my pressure is doing at the tank without having to get out of the car, go back there and look at that other gauge, the manual gauge that's back there. It all went pretty smoothly. It took me a little time to figure out how to get some of this stuff mounted and how I was going to go about doing it. Some of the little issues I had, since this was a used kit, I had to make spacers. I don't know if you can see it under there. There's a aluminum spacer in there, and there's also one on the other side of the plenum elbow. Because this is a plate system and not the nozzle like you can get the shark nozzle, I guess is what's called, that'll hook into your air tube and spray the nitrous that way. This plate raises your whole thing up about a ½ inch, you know, the whole plenum, which for most people is probably not a problem, but you do have to be aware of hood clearance. It may become an issue. This, since this is on a Lincoln, you guys with the Mustangs and Crown Vics, you got it easy. This whole cowl assembly is kind of in the way. I've taken it out on several occasions when I've worked on the car. I didn't feel like taking it out this time. But you can see things are really close. I had to actually notch out where the TPS sensor is, the throttle position sensor, because it's really close now, and it's a bear to get behind here to get to the bolts for the plenum. And as far as changing the jets out for the nitrous, it's gonna be a bear, really a pain. So if you got a Mustang or Crown Vic, you're a lot better off in shape with that. One thing I will mention that was not an issue, but just something to be aware of. Nitrous Express for the purge system gives you this little tiny piece of line, which, you know what, it's useless basically for most people. About all it's good for is to go to the auto store to match up and tell the guy at the parts counter. I need a piece of pipe like this or tubing like this, but I need it longer, and let them get it for you. So what I have from doing some brake lines and stuff in the past for my cars, I did have some of this tubing in a roll. So I cut it down to size and made my own purge line. You can see it goes up out and under the back of the hood there. So it works well. And I can actually see what's going on with the purge when I hit the purge. Some of the electrical stuff I'll cover real quick if you're interested. I used a electronic relay for the solenoids for the nitrous system versus a mechanical relay, and I'll explain why. I have a progressive controller inside the car that I'm going to use, and how that works is it will pulse the solenoids on and off at a certain rate and increase the rate until it becomes 100% just open all the time. So you get like I think they said something like a 20 or 25% initial shot of your total nitrous setup, and then it ramps itself up and you can vary the time. So because you're going to be pulsing the solenoids very quickly, I felt the mechanical relay would not be really suitable for that. Electronic type solid state relay like the one I have here will be no issue. It can handle that. So that's a little bit of what I got going on here. The other thing, I haven't put them on yet, but I am going to, for these solenoids, I want to put some diodes across the coils on the solenoids, because what happens when you turn the power off to these solenoids, the coil stores energy, and what happens is when the power is cut off, that energy wants to backfeed into your electrical system again, and at a high voltage too. That's not like 12 volts DC coming back into your circuit again. It could be several hundred volts or more, depending on the amount of windings in your coil. And what this, if you put the diode across the coil in the proper polarity, when it goes to backfeed into your system, it's basically creates a short across the coil, and it shorts the coil out so it doesn't put that voltage back into your system, which if you have a car with a computer system like I do, you probably don't want that to happen. So I know they don't put them in from the factory, but I think that's something that's good practice to do. And I will go ahead and do that before I actually put the system into service. All right, we're going to walk around to the passenger compartment here. I want to show you my controller system for the nitrous and what I did. Again, it's a Lincoln, so there's really no aftermarket kits that you can get that'll like fit in your cup holder or whatever, like they do for the other cars. But nonetheless, I got this switch off of Amazon, and as you can see, there's 4 switches here and 2 momentary switches, which is perfect. I have all the wiring routed through and under the carpeting, and what I have is I have these kind of labeled the best I can. They give you these little peel and stick labels that go over these windows here. These are all backlit at nighttime. They come on with your interior lights, your dash lights. And also when you flick the switch on with the power turned on, the key on, it'll also light up the LEDs in your switches so you know which ones are powered up. And what I have here is the first switch is to arm the system. The second one I have marked as an H, which is for the heater. I just have the other 2 marked as radar and driving lights. That's what I put there. Actually, what I'm going to probably use the third switch for eventually will be a bottle opener. Then we have the momentary switches. The one is marked brake, and that is going to be the temporary momentary switch for the line locks that I'm going to install eventually on the car. And the other one says emitter, and basically that's my purge. So it makes kind of sense to me, but you know, you could label it however you want for your own application. And then, as I was saying, here is the controller inside the car here. I don't like to mount electronics under the hood. Plus, this gives me access to the time delay settings right here from inside the car. So if I need to change it, I can change it without having to get out, pop the hood, and mess around under the hood. And piggybacked onto that is my Lingenfelter RPM window switch and throttle position sensor. And I bought this in lieu of the Nitrous Express one, which is all digital. I like this one a little better myself, preferred, because it has, and I don't know if you can see it in the video here. Let me see if I open up the door, get a little more light in here. That may help. There are little potentiometers, you could call them, or switches. They click in steps, and they're all numbered 1 through whatever it is. I can't see because I'm sitting off to the side here, but this is all done manually, so you can see what you're doing. You don't have to have the window switch powered up. You can make the adjustments with the car powered off and then make your next run. So that's what I opted for. Just my preference. It's a little cheaper too. And then again, here's my gauge cluster. I was talking about my nitrous system. You can see I haven't purged out the system. I was testing it. I have about 800 pounds of pressure in the system right now, so I probably should go out there and blow off the nitrous in the line. So this is basically my setup.